Miami's hot shooting cooled off in game three, missing shots from deep and at the rim again and again and again. And the Nuggets got a historic performance from Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. What adjustments did Denver make? And how will Miami respond in game four? We answer that on today's final edition of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, and when you enter the promo code LockedOnNBA, they're going to throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Recording this just a few minutes after the Miami Heat lose to the Denver Nuggets, 109-94. David, the Heat had a chance to take a lead in these NBA Finals after winning Game 2 in Denver. They missed that opportunity because they missed so many shots at the rim. They shot 37% in this game. Jimmy Butler, 11 of 24. I counted that like 19 or 20 missed shots right at the basket in this one. You think about everything that happened in this game. Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, triple doubles, all these things. They played well, the Nuggets did. I'm not saying this to take any kind of credit away from them, but to me, I feel like if the Heat are making a lot more of those shots at the basket that they normally make, then this entire game has a different kind of tone, because every time Jimmy Butler missed or somebody else missed at the basket, it felt like the Nuggets were grabbing the rebound and basically getting in transition and easy buckets that way.
Yeah, the rebounding battle, a clear advantage for Denver, 58 rebounds to just 33 for Miami. And you're exactly right. They were able to pick off those rebounds, kick off their transition game, and Miami's defense wasn't set. They weren't hitting shots, and especially those shots at the rim where you're thinking you can close the gap, take a lead in the game, because it was tied after one quarter. But in the second quarter, they just went away from it. They couldn't hit anything at the rim. They couldn't hit anything from beyond the perimeter. And all those shots just demoralizing this team. They just couldn't seem to get any kind of momentum going. And Denver just capitalizing on that. Eric Spoelstra after the game talking about Miami losing the battle of physicality, losing the battle of the 50-50 ball going in Denver's way, and just the sheer identity that they exerted on Miami in today's game three, something that we hadn't seen either in game one or two. And it was a lopsided victory in Denver's favor.
It was the best game the Nuggets have played this entire series. I don't think that's a stretch to say. And this was kind of what I think we expected to see from the Denver Nuggets in this series. Their ball movement off and on the ball was crisp. Jamal Murray finally getting going. What did he finish with? I mean, a triple-double, 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Jokic with 32 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. I mean, again, with the Will Chamberlain numbers with him. It's been we hadn't seen this. We hadn't seen that level of triple-double dominance from Jokic. We have not seen that version of Jamal Murray, who is just in full-on villain mode in this game. Every time the Heat were about to make a run, it just felt like Jamal Murray was hitting a really big shot, a falling away two-pointer or a three-pointer off of the screen. That two-man game with Jokic was finally getting going. Credit Denver. I think you have to start there with what happened in this game, because not only offensively were they more purposeful, I thought defensively they were closing out on Miami shooters better. The Heat 11 of 35, just 31% from three-point range in this one. The Nuggets just went out and beat the Heat on their home court. You got to start there. But I want to throw it back to Jimmy Butler too, because there's a lot of talk about, like, when are we going to get playoff Jimmy, right? And going into this game, a lot of people, hey, are you going to be playoff Jimmy? Hey, are you going to be playoff Jimmy? And he just kept saying, I'm going to make the right play. I'm going to make the right play.
Right.
Well, Denver was not overhelping on him in this one.
No.
And so the game kind of lent itself to him being more of an aggressive scorer. He wasn't a more aggressive scorer. We had not seen him this aggressive since that Milwaukee series, 24 field goal attempts, 22 in 3 quarters.
Right.
He didn't really play all that much in the fourth quarter by the time it got away from them. What did you think about Jimmy Butler's performance? Because to me, this was the closest thing we saw to Milwaukee playoff Jimmy. Unfortunately, in terms of aggression level, but he just wasn't making the shots that we were accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. I mean, he was attacking the basket. He was getting good looks. The jumper wasn't falling. It looked a little flat. In fact, a lot of those, I mean, he was 1 of 4 from three-point range. clearly still again looking to bail himself and the offense out with that 3-point shot. It's not within rhythm the way it was against the Milwaukee Bucks, where he's scoring a bunch and he's just kind of feeling it from the perimeter. That wasn't the case today. He wasn't able to hit at the rim, wasn't able to hit in his mid-range jumper, wasn't able to hit from the perimeter. Kind of just symbolic of this whole Heat team in general, where as far as where Jimmy goes, that's how far Miami goes. But the same could be said of Bam Adebayo. He shot just 33%, 7 of 21 from the floor, missing a lot of open looks at the rim.
22 points on 21 shots.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. It was just those momentum killers, and Denver was able to capitalize it and just find those shots and just be able to just shut down Miami. I don't know. You asked a question about you when you first brought up the point, Miami, maybe they could have given themselves a chance to win had they made those shots. And at the same time, we both acknowledge that Denver played a hell of a game. You got incredible performances from Jokic and Murray. If Miami had been able to hit those shots, maybe they don't win the game, but they can't put themselves in the position to lose it as badly as they did by missing a lot of makeable shots at the rim, especially when you're not hitting 3-point shots. A lot has been made in this series about Miami's hot shooting from beyond the perimeter. And while it's still the case that Miami's best chances of winning any game are with their shooting well from beyond the 3-point line, so many shots at the rim that they missed, and that kind of ignites their offense. If you're hitting shots at the rim, then it kind of feeds itself. And again, you can slow down Denver's transition offense. So it was just kind of just steamrolled. After that first quarter, there was a lot of momentum there. It felt like Miami was starting to get things going. And then in the second quarter, just all collapsed from that point forward.
That third quarter was really bad. Outscored 29-20. And then in the beginning of the fourth quarter, it wasn't that great either, even though you look at the total fourth quarter, 27-26, Nuggets edge. So not that bad. But again, that whole third quarter and the beginning of that fourth quarter, that's when Denver just took over that game. And it ended up being basically a blowout. We got Nikola Jokic minutes at the end. That's kind of where we were at.
Haslam minutes.
Yeah, I mean, 29 seconds, barely even minutes. But yeah, to your point, not the version of not when I wanted to see Haslam in these finals. I wanted to see it sort of the other way if we were going to see UD in his last finals. You mentioned the turnovers and the transition and all that stuff. Just 4 turnovers for the Heat in this one. Otherwise, a very clean basketball game. I actually thought that they got good looks in this game.
Supposed to the same thing.
Yeah. The problem is when you're missing those shots and then you're not getting, I shouldn't even say that you're not necessarily getting back on defense. Just when you're missing them at the rim, your whole offense too kind of crashes because maybe they're looking for offensive rebounds or something like that. Miami did not get nearly enough offensive rebounds in this game. But because they weren't getting the turnovers, Denver was grabbing these defensive rebounds off these misses and just sprinting the other way like it was a turnover. So I know that they didn't get a lot of turnovers, but it just felt like the Nuggets were getting those transition points as if the Heat had coughed up 24 turnovers instead of 4 turnovers.
But even beyond the transition points, you have to give credit to Denver's off-ball movement. Their cutting was phenomenal tonight, whether it was a 2-man game between Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray or Christian Brown igniting Denver's offense, particularly in that third quarter. He was sensational. You saw what happened in game 2 when he was just back cut to death by Duncan Robinson. Today was his turn to return the favor, and he really did an incredible job of just moving without the ball, getting the position, and that was as demoralizing as anything. Is you stop Jokic, you stop Murray, who were on fire for most of the game, and then all of a sudden you've got Christian Brown coming in baseline, finishing in for a dunk. You got Aaron Gordon doing the same thing too often, and it just kept piling up. Miami just had no response.
It was a great Nuggets game. One stat before we go to our next segment here. Jokic and Murray made history. This is the first time in the regular season or playoffs that teammates had triple doubles with 30 or more points in the same game. I mean, they dominated. Jokic, or the Denver Stars, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, took this game over in a way that Miami's Stars really didn't. It was not an efficient game for Jimmy Butler. It was not an efficient game for Bam Adebayo, and Jokic and Murray had their way, and it's going to be up to now Miami to try to bounce back. One other point, though, that I'm not done, I think is a good one that you brought up that we should follow up on is just the lack of help that they got in this one. We're going to talk about that next when we get to Blame Pie. But first, David, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors, With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or you get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. When you shop on eBay Motors, and with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. That's all. It's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only, and exclusions do apply.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're going to be back Friday morning with an in-depth look at what the Heat can do to bounce back in Game 4. But, David, that smell you smell, it's not the smell of whatever was in this room, whatever kind of food, maybe a little bit of coffee before we started using it to recording it. No, that smell is unfortunately the smelly smell of blame pie. We have 10 slices of blame pie to give out. Do we want to start with Jimmy Butler, even though we talked at length about him, but how many slices should he get?
I think you can give 2 apiece to him and Bam and Adebayo.
Fair.
They're both offensive inconsistency. It was very odd to see them both missing with such regularity at the rim, getting good looks. The shots look flat, clanking off rims. It just very atypical for what we've seen from both players, especially Bam in this series has been very good. Jimmy struggling of late as he continues to recover from injury. No excuses. Shots that were at the rim, layups, everything that he could have knocked down, not doing so between the two of them. Again, it's very, very surprising.
Spo sort of gave Denver credit for their size, but it kind of also felt like he didn't. It felt like when he was saying that in post game, it was sort of something to say, like kind of the platitudes. He did mention that he wants to go back and watch the film and kind of see what happened offensively. I did not think it was Denver's size that bothered Jimmy Butler. I thought he got the looks that he wanted. I thought he was really aggressive early, at 10 points in that first quarter. And then he just sort of slowed down. I don't know if it's the ankle, to your point. I don't know if it's just the wear and tear. The guy's been playing, it's his 20th playoff game. He's been playing 40 minutes a game at this age, at 33 years old. Like, I don't know that maybe it's everything combined. I don't want to give Denver credit for Jimmy Butler missing the shots, because I thought he got the shots that he wanted. Yeah. This was the most aggressive that we've seen Jimmy Butler. And one of the things that Denver was doing in games 2 is they were overhelping on Jimmy. They have Aaron Gordon defending Jimmy Butler, and they would overhelp constantly on Jimmy Butler and turn him into a passer instead of a scorer. Well, today they did not overhelp. They let Aaron Gordon just defend his position. For the most part, they threw double teams here and there, and Jimmy Butler got his switches, and they tried to kick out and help on the switches when it was like Jamal Murray or Bruce Brown on him or something like that. But a number of times where Jimmy Butler got where he wanted and just missed the shot point blank, you know? So
I'm looking at it right now, and even as we're recording this, I'm watching the video of Jimmy's layups package, and it's just like he's attacking the rim. He's going at Jamal Murray, clanks the shot, goes at Nikola Jokic, gets by him, clanks the shot, takes a jumper, misses it completely.
My concern for the Heat is if you're getting these looks right now, if you're Jimmy Butler, is there any hope that he can respond and have a better game? Or is this just what we're left with Jimmy Butler at this stage in the playoffs? Because we talked about this coming out of that Boston series. We saw him in that locker room after Game 7 limping around. You know, it was just, this was my fear for the Miami Heat is if playoff Jimmy, the way that we saw him against the Milwaukee Bucks, doesn't exist, and the Denver Nuggets are going to invite him to be a scorer, and he just can't do it because physically just doesn't have it anymore. That's my biggest concern walking away from this game from the Miami Heat. Not the three-point shooting, not the lack of help, none of that stuff, because I think the Heat, if you're getting this kind of stuff from Jokic and Murray, then you, at some point, you're just going to need Jimmy Butler to have a huge game. And I think he recognized that tonight, but he just couldn't do it.
Well, it doesn't help that Bam couldn't compliment him either. I mean, between the two of them missing such easy shots, it's a good point. You know, the thing is with Jimmy and Bam scoring so easily or able to score more easily, that kind of sets up the playmaking aspect, and you get those better wide open looks. I think Miami still had wide open looks from 3. They just weren't able to knock them down, but the scoring has to come from somewhere. You're not getting calls in your favor. That's not a point that I want to belabor for too long, but the easy shots, you're missing those. The mid-range jumpers, you're missing those. You got to find some avenue for scoring, and I just don't know what that next step could be. I mean, Jimmy has to continue to attack aggressively, and I think we'll continue to see that as the norm throughout the rest of the series. And then if those shots are falling, then again, the defense will collapse on him. You'll get that help from Denver, and maybe you can spray it out to some three-point shooters in the hope that maybe they'll knock it down a little bit more effectively than they did today.
That's where you have to start, is a three-point shooting. This was Jimmy Butler's highest scoring game of the series, by the way. And we're talking about this like it's his worst game. But the reason we're talking about it like it's its worst game is because it was so just obvious.
11
and
of
the reason
24.
it was,
that's not good.
I mean, it's not. I mean, yeah, it was not efficient for a game for him. And look, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, like that stuff wasn't good.
Yeah, he was
like that stuff's not good in terms of how he loaded
felt
up.
like empty calories.
And then, yeah, exactly. And you think about, all right, well, defensively, shouldn't he be shutting out Jamal Murray's water? And he couldn't, because Jamal Murray was awesome tonight.
Yeah.
Credit Denver. They were stringing those pick and rolls out wide. They were having Jamal Murray run that pick and roll with Jokic, and then again stringing him wide and going through another pick and try to get Jimmy Butler off of him. Great stuff by Denver. They adjusted. They made they pushed the right buttons and pulled the right levers offensively. But the other reason why I think Jimmy Butler's poor game feels so heavy in this one is because Miami's shooters weren't making shots. So 11 of 35 overall. Max Strus 1 of 4. Gabe Vincent 1 of 6. This is from 3-point range. Jimmy Butler 1 of 4. I don't know why he took 4 of them. Kyle Lowry 1 of 4. Caleb Martin 2 of 5, and he was the best out of all of them, other than Duncan Robinson, who was efficient with 3 of 6 from 3-point range. None of those guys really stepped up. I think we could start with Max Strus, he was 4 of 7 in the first quarter in game 2, and he just had no kind of he did not have that kind of impact. And Gabe Vincent, I think you got to start with the starting group, who were all in the negative plus minus.
1 of 7 from Max. He struggled this series. I think he might be either pushing himself too much defensively and just doesn't have anything left offensively. He had a big first quarter in game 2. It was just enough to help Miami build a cushion to withstand the eventual Denver comeback. That was not the case. Missing wide open looks as well. And, very clearly, and those are the thing is you hit those shots in the first quarter of game 3 and it changes the complexity completely. You've got a different vibe to you. You're kind of feeling it a little bit. You have to, from a defensive standpoint on Denver's side, you have to be able to close out on Strus. There were times there where he had wide open looks and they didn't care because they didn't think he was going to be able to knock those down. And so it just kind of piles on. The 3-point shooting didn't exist, and you're able to collapse on Jimmy and Bam in the paint, make those shots much more difficult for those 2 scorers. And again, if you spray it out to a 3-point shooter and they're not knocking it down, where's the source of your offense?
Gabe Vincent was a bad game for him. 7 points, 2 of 10 overall, 3 fouls in the first half.
How much credit do you give Denver's defense? Because I think they did things well. At the same time, I look at Miami's opportunities in scoring, and I'd say it's probably 60-40 Miami's fault rather than what Denver did well.
Are you talking about just the shooters, or are we including Jimmy Butler and Bam in this?
Yeah, no, everybody.
I would say it's probably 70-30 Miami just missing shots. I shouldn't say missing shots that they've made this entire postseason, but this was the Denver Nuggets that we saw in the regular season and in the entire Western Conference bracket. Yeah. And this was the Heat that we saw in the regular season, right? This is the conversation we had all regular season long was, boy, it just feels like a pedestrian night from Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and Miami's shooters weren't making shots, and we're 6 games over 500.
Right.
That was it. This was regular season Miami Heat at home, and I don't know what I don't know what it is about being at home. I don't think it's anything about the home crowd. I actually thought the crowd tonight was awesome. Incredible. But I think maybe this team just sort of relaxes a little bit at home, because I actually think one of the reasons they're this far is because they've started every series on the road. And I think this team relishes that opportunity to just go on the road and just lock in like these little mini bubbles in Milwaukee, in New York, in Boston, and then in Denver. And they could just sort of like focus on basketball, and then they get home, and I just feel like they just kind of sink into their couch a little bit.
Yeah, Eric Spoelstra made an interesting point about like the short turnaround. There's been several days of rest in between games 1 through 3 so far. In between games 3 and 4, there's just Thursday and tomorrow. Both teams will be practicing. They'll be back at it on Friday for game 4. And Spo said, you know what, our guys just want to get out there. They want to go compete yet again. That might help Miami. You hope anyway. Yeah. That's the feeling, is that at least you don't have to, you put it behind you. You don't concentrate on what happened. You look forward to what's next. Be more aggressive. Continue to work on your shot making ability and see what happens.
And get physical and win those 50-50 balls that Eric Spoelstra kept talking about too.
That was a big point from him.
Yeah, and that wasn't my takeaway from this game. But I do tend to just look at the pure shot making. I guess I don't have a trained eye, I suppose, but I also look Caleb Martin 10 points, Christian Brown 15 points. And those were the 2 best like non-big 2 guys in these games. And then you kind of go down the list, and it just look, it's Kevin Love 6 points, Aaron Gordon 11 points, it's Gabe Vincent 7 points, it's Bruce Brown 5 points, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope 6 points. Like The Nuggets just got it from other places even more than Miami got it, and then obviously their two
they
stars
struggled
were the
from
story of the
3-point
game.
range too. They weren't very. I mean, they were only 20-something.
They were 5 of 18.
Yeah,
but they didn't have to be good from 3-point range
because they
were
in the paint.
If they're again not good at math here. If they're 5 of 18, that's 28% from 3-point range, but they shot 51% overall. Is that like 120% from 2-point range?
Something like that.
That's the game.
You're not too far off.
We got our questions next. Is it time maybe to take Max Strus out of the starting lineup? Because the thing about Strus, it's not been a great series for him. He's had one good quarter all series, and it wasn't even a great series for him against Boston either. Maybe that's something that we have to look at. We're going to do that next. But first, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They fit way better than regular shorts and are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. I know you've talked about it before. They're comfortable. In Miami, you need a pair of shorts so you can walk around in with this heat and humidity. Bird Dogs are great for any occasion, whether you're sitting poolside, going for a walk at the beach, going to the park, wherever you like to do in South Florida's great weather. This is an opportunity. Bird Dogs makes it easy for you to look great and feel great too. Show yourself wearing go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA and enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're going to be back Friday morning with an in-depth look on how the Miami Heat could bounce back after Game 4. We're going to parse the film. We're going to do all that stuff. We're going to train our eyes and have a better sense of what it is that the Heat can do. But I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what went wrong in this one. I keep coming back to this. If the Heat make more of those shots at the rim, the Nuggets are not getting out in transition.
Right.
And this game has a different tone and different feel to it. Are you concerned about this in terms of it being a trend? Or do you think this is sort of a one-off freaky, hey, the shots just weren't falling tonight?
It's hard to say for certain because Miami has been so reliant on things breaking their way by taking away something that their opponents do well and then capitalizing on their opportunities. Today, they just couldn't seem to find a way to do that. And it was Denver that was making all the right choices, capitalizing on every miss, every mistake, and just piling on again and again. And it just feels like it's just it kind of feeds itself. It's cyclical. If you knock down those shots, you can get back to defense a lot easier. Those rebounds don't lead to transition buckets or a defense that's not able to set properly. Instead, you miss shots. They get an easier look. Again, you even if you're defending well, and there were many possessions in which they did, again, shutting down either Jokic or Murray, or at least limiting them, not shutting them down, but limiting them. And then you get back cut to death with Christian Brown, who's 7 of 8 from the floor. Like, his minutes were so positive. We can't take that away from what Denver and their players were able to do, because he did a really, really good job of finding space there and making Miami pay for every time they doubled Jokic or Jamal Murray.
Before we get to some questions, and those watching live on YouTube, thanks for tuning in after this game. And if you have any questions, leave them in the chat. We'll try to get to some of them. A couple, I just want to just little notebook dump on other observations that I noticed.
Sure.
I thought Denver did a really good job of playing the inside of the floor when Gabe Vincent or Max Strus or even Jimmy Butler or Kyle Lowry were in pick and roll with Bam Adebayo. That pocket pass to Bam was Miami's main trigger of offense for the first 2 games of this series. It would not only would it get Bam easy points at the basket, obviously, or get him into those in rhythm foul line jumpers, but it got him on that short roll, kicking out to guys in the corner and all those things. I thought Denver made a concerted effort to basically angle their bodies towards the middle of the floor to take away and deny those pocket passes to Bam every time a ball handler came off of a screen with Bam. So I thought that was an interesting adjustment. I thought that's also what opened up some other things on the floor that Miami couldn't really take advantage of. And that's one of the things that I expect Spo to have a fix for in Game 4, because it was kind of exaggerated the way that the Denver Nuggets were doing it. And I do wonder if, like, when you do something like that defensively, it usually springs other leaks somewhere else. And I think that's something that the Heat could try to get to on Friday night. The other thing, Jamal Murray, I think I mentioned it before, going wide on those screens and trying to and stretching Miami's defense out. That's creating different, more space for Jokic to get into the paint, but also Aaron Gordon. He had a couple of lobs to start the second half that sprung a Nuggets run out of those actions and things like that. So those are just a couple of things that I noticed Denver do in terms of just straightaway adjustments from games 1 and 2 to game 3. And I thought it was good adjustments by them.
Fair enough.
But let's talk about some questions. Thanks to everybody who sent in questions on Twitter using the hashtag AskEloheat. Of course, you can always reach us, email, Instagram, Twitter, etc. This comes from Cameron. If you're Spo, do you start Duncan over Strus in the next game?
No, I do not. I think Duncan was limited too. He did go 3 of 6, but a lot of that was when Denver was, up by 21 at one point. They were kind of taking their foot off the gas. I don't think that's a difference. Max still provides some effort. You could look at Max's box score and say, well, he still had 5 assists. He was working the 2-man game with Bam early in the first quarter very, very effectively. It just wasn't able to hit his shots. I don't know. I don't think Caleb is the answer either. I was thinking to myself, should Caleb be the starter over Max Strus? We already saw that in terms of him replacing Kevin Love in the starting lineup and then being replaced by Kevin Love. I don't know that you can afford to sit Max down right now because it just, you get to the finals, you count on him, and I know he's just a role player, etc. But that's Miami's ticket to success so far has been their role player stepping up, and I don't know that you can afford to demoralize Strus anymore by saying, look, clearly you've struggled this series. You're going to continue to struggle more because I'm just going to bench you outright. So it's a gamble, and I think Spo is wily and experienced enough to know that his job right now is to build confidence rather than take it away.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right. I would be shocked. That's not going to happen. They're not going to bench Strus for Duncan Robinson. Feels like they could have used Tyler Hero in this game, though. Do you think that there's a better chance? Look, still not cleared to return.
Yep.
Ahead of game 3. I think that there was a little bit of a lack of urgency to try to clear him. But now that you're down 2-1 with game 4, obviously at home in Miami, that's kind of your season. I don't think you can afford to go down 3-1 in this series against the Nuggets going back to Denver, right?
Definitely not.
Might we see Tyler Hero in game 4? I'm not asking you to, in Spo's words, be Nostradamus, but
yeah, we have no idea.
If he can go, this feels like it's time for him to go.
Yeah, he could be the one thing that could change how Denver's defense attacks Miami and limits their shooters, etc. They just haven't prepared for him. It's a risk, but at this point, the risk is too great in going down 3-1, and we'll have to see how game 4 plays out and whether or not he's even available. Again, Spo was asked about it pregame. He shot it down. He said, look, he's just not cleared. He's just not available right now. Maybe you put him out there. We'll see. He's going to go through a full contact workout on Thursday in between game 3 and 4, and we'll see how he responds to that. We'll provide updates for that on our next episode, so make sure to stay tuned for that. So I guess, at this point, what choice do you have? You don't have any other options. I'm a little surprised also that maybe you didn't put in Haywood Highsmith a little earlier to kind of shut things down defensively. I think he could have done a little bit better job on either not Jokic necessarily, but on Murray or limiting guys like Brown and Gordon from getting those easy looks. But
if I should have placed a bet on FanDuel or something, I was going to bet $20 that you were going to bring up Haywood Highsmith at some point. You love Haywood Highsmith.
I think his defense provides a spark in the same way that Miami just didn't have today. He provides those turnovers. We saw that. Look, maybe it's just one possession, but what really stands out to me about this playoff run from Haywood is him poking the ball from Jason Tatum in game 7 and helping to kind of build that lead bigger and bigger. And Miami crushed Boston's spirits after that point forward. So I think it's worth at least exploring and bringing him on there for his defensive acumen and hoping that you can do something differently. You don't have an answer for Jamal Murray. I think Haywood Highsmith could provide some of that defense on him. I think he could do a little bit better of a job. He's mobile enough. He's long-limbed. You're not getting past him. You're not going to be able to just, you can't just dominate the physicality there because he's strong enough to be able to hold his own. I think he's a versatile, switchable player. Defensive.
I just where do the minutes come from? Like Max? Do you take him away from Max? Do you take him away from Gabe? Are you taking him away? Kevin Love
it's too easy to say you could take him away from Cody Zeller, who has to go in there and spell.
Fun fact about Cody Zeller:
only plus minus on the game. Yeah.
He was a +4, the only guy who had a plus minus in the positives for the Heat tonight.
Minus, terrible.
So the Zeller minutes were the best thing happening for the Heat tonight.
Yeah.
Plus minus, obviously, not an accurate reflection of what goes on. 0 points, 0 rebounds, and a foul. But he was a +4.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. I mean, we talked about this in context of Tyler, his eventual return too. It's like somebody's going to wind up losing
tonight,
sometime.
Let's kind of test drive it though. Tonight, whose minutes would he have taken? I think you could have eaten into Lowry's minutes a little bit because he had 4 fouls. That would have been an obvious place. Gabe Vincent, when he picked up 3 fouls in the first half, you could have put Tyler Hero in those minutes too. To me, I think you want to use Tyler Hero when Jimmy Butler is off the court so that you always have some shot creators. You have your 2 best shot creators on ball in the game at all times, right? Or one of the 2, I should say. I think the minutes would have been easy to find in this game. And maybe that's what it is in game 4. Maybe it's, all right, let's roll out there with our regular rotation, our regular 9, see how the game goes. And if there's a spot where we feel like we need Tyler Hero, we'll go to Tyler Hero then. But maybe you don't in Sharpie kind of plan out those minutes before the game starts. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to say we see Tyler Hero in game 4.
All right. That provides a big boost. I mean, this crowd was rocking at points in time throughout the first half in particular. After that third, and when that third quarter started in demoralizing fashion with Aaron Gordon getting an easy layup, then a lob from Nikola Jokic, it was just at that point they got taken out of it a little bit. They tried mustering some energy, but it was clearly a flat crowd. Again, they had a point
I
lead.
thought they came out really strong. I thought the crowd was great. I thought they tried to egg on the Heat a couple times with some "Let's Go Heat" chants, and they didn't give them much to cheer for. You know, like I'm not going to blame Denver's crowd for being dead in the latter stages of game 2. And I'm not going to blame Miami's crowd for being dead a little bit there. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Denver
in game
did their
4.
job.
One more game.
They got back the home court advantage. Yes. They came in here. They had a clear purpose. You knew they were going to find a way to adjust. I thought Miami would be able to prepare for that adjustment. Maybe they did get a little too comfortable. I mean, there were some Denver fans saying the same thing about the Nuggets, that they kind of read their own press after game 1, and then they kind of took their foot off the gas in game 2, and that's how Miami was able to win it. Conversely, maybe that's what Miami did for game 3. We'll see which team continues to make adjustments. I don't think Denver will be content to just let Miami win game 4, which is what we expect to be the case. Having said that, Miami has to go out there and take the victory. They can't just afford to let Denver dictate any terms whatsoever. They've got to be the dominant team on Friday.
Look, Nuggets lost game 2. They made the adjustments. They made the right ones. Michael Malone's a fantastic coach. Jokic is too smart. Jamal Murray is too smart. That team is awesome, and they're here for a reason. And they came out, and they did all the right things in game 3, and they earned game 3, like you said. Now, the Miami Heat, it's up to them. They're the team against the ropes. Their season is pretty much on the line. If there's been a must-win in this series, this is it on Friday night. We'll see how they respond. But thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Every day is going to be back Friday morning with an in-depth look on how exactly the Miami Heat can bounce back in Game 4. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. And David, thanks for joining me.
You got it, Wes.